We've got Verdissimo, who is a lucha libre wrestler. So who's
Nice.
actually like a real life human being. He just wears a mask. He doesn't
That's
have,
awesome.
yeah, an elaborate furry costume or anything like that. But he's come into his own. So he was the central figure in maybe one of the worst schedule release videos I think that's happened in MLS history. Yeah,
I'm gonna
look
have to
up
go
look
look
up
this
the
up
uh
after we
the
finish.
Verde Scrolls. It's
Okay.
it's just absolutely surreal. I mean, there was definite vision for what was being done. They definitely took a big swing on that one. And it's mixed. There's some people that absolutely love it who think it's the best thing ever. But yeah, so he kind of made his debut in there and he's evolved into something that is, I would say, a good mascot. Not a conventional mascot. I mean, you still can't beat Fang, right? So like
Yeah.
as mascots go. But yeah, but he's doing the work.
Emergency podcast. Better did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hell yeah, shut up, hell yeah, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Well, it is upon us. The Open Cup is here, the final Wednesday night. And as a special guest here, just to kind of preview things, we've got Ben Wright from 615 Soccer and MLS and Backheeled and all sorts of places that cover soccer, but a Nashville SC soccer expert. Ben, how are you doing and how's your time in Austin so far, the hour or so that you've been here?
It's been the drive from the airport to the Airbnb has been fantastic. Cannot recommend it
Wonderful.
enough.
Okay,
Anybody
great.
who wants to drive from the airport to Airbnb, I think Austin is the place to do it.
Great. Especially if you were flying into Austin's airport. That is you're best equipped to do
Yeah.
that.
Hopefully I'll have more time to explore tomorrow and Thursday, but
Yeah, that'll be great. So you are gonna stay some time after, regardless of the
yeah,
result.
I don't head out until my flight leaves at 5:30 on Thursday evening. So I'll have some time during the day to mess around and hopefully explore a bit more.
Okay. So I mean, if you are staying through Thursday, I'm gonna recommend a couple of barbecue places to you. If you can commit to 5 hours in line, you can go to Franklin. If you don't want to do that, you can go to Micklethwait with a silent TH, which is pretty outstanding. Style switch is good too. Locals will agree with me on those, but again, barbecue is one of those topics that everybody has a specific opinion about here. So let's get into it. First, I want to talk about the Open Cup run. I mean, obviously, from the Austin side, we feel like this is a team of destiny. We were 20 minutes from being eliminated from the Open Cup in the very first round to a USL team, somehow came back from a 2-0 deficit. And it's been pretty interesting for Austin since. But for those of us who are not familiar necessarily with what Nashville's been doing, why don't you go ahead and take us through their journey and where they entered and then what struggles they might have had along the way?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously it's the first full year under BJ Callahan. He came in last July and really was working with a team that and a roster that wasn't really built to play his style. And by the time he took over Nashville last year, they were in a very uphill battle to even make the playoffs. Ultimately, ended up missing it for the first time since they joined MLS back in 2020. Fully reset the roster. I think 14 players left in the winter window, and it's pretty clearly from the beginning been a much better fit for how Callahan wants to play. It's not quite full Philadelphia Union. I would say it's a mix of kind of the Union and kind of the pressing style with what you saw with Greg Berhalter in the national team and more of a kind of possession-based approach. I think it's a mashup of the two. So they play 4-2-2-2 formation, 4-2-2-2 if you want to cut out some of those numbers.
Sure.
Very, very, very high press. They like to, I mean, they've started doing this thing from opening kickoff where they'll just take the kickoff and boot it out of bounds deep into the opponent's half and then press from that. So definitely a lot of pressing, but they also have the ability to kind of break you down with the ball. They look much better in possession. And so I think it's been like significant improvement in 2025. They were a supporter shield, like legit contender until middle of July when they hit this stretch. Up until their win against Houston last weekend, they had won one game out of their last 7 league games, which really just took them out of Shield contention. I think they were 3 points off of first place before that. So I think some frustration on that side of things, just that this felt like a team that should be a threat for MLS Cup and Supporter Shield, and then kind of just tanked here down the stretch. And I think for a lot of fans, they think this run to the Open Cup is more what the team should be and what they hope they will be in playoffs. They beat Chattanooga, a USL team, in the first round, went to Orlando and played. Orlando played they rested midweek and played their full strength lineup. Nashville played a full strength lineup and pretty much rotated the full team midweek and beat them 3-2. Played DC United, beat them, I think it was 5-1 or 5-2. It was a pretty one-sided game.
Yeah,
And then
it was close until it wasn't.
Right. And then they played Philadelphia in the semifinals and just played them off the pitch, and beat them for the third time this year. So I think it's been, aside from the Orlando game, which Nashville ended up winning with a kind of a side full of backups and even some guys called up from Huntsville and MLS Next Pro. It's been a pretty comfortable run for them so far. They've played a lot of that at home, DC and Philadelphia at Geodis Park. So they've had that going for them. But it does feel like they've stepped up in Open Cup, maybe in a way that they haven't in MLS regular season play.
Okay. Yeah, and that happens sometimes, clearly. So yeah, regular season, you were mentioning there was that 1-7 stretch, but they had a huge unbeaten run beforehand. How would you characterize this season? You talked about Callahan and his style of play and getting some of the players that he wanted. So just in terms of how that's coalesced, because I know for Austin, it's been a weird journey where the first half of the season, I think the team was to a certain degree kind of finding their way. And strangely, the Vasquez injury kind of helped things coalesce, which you wouldn't expect like a major injury to do that. But it seems like the roles were a lot more clear and defined once the kind of balance between Vasquez and Azuni was kind of decided for them. So just kind of curious about how the teams coalesced over the course of the season. They hit that skid, but maybe they're rising out of it. Certainly playing Houston can help with that.
Yeah, so I think it took them a couple of weeks to kind of find their form at the beginning of the year. They were missing some key guys with injury, like Eddie Tagseth was kind of pushed out to the wing. He's much more of a number 6, but they kind of had to shift things around just because of injuries. Gaston Brugman was hurt to start the year. So I think and obviously it's like 14 new players coming into a team with a head coach who's been there for 6 months and a fully new coaching staff. So I think it took everybody some time to kind of find their feet. But I do think Callahan came in with pretty clear ideas of how he wanted to play. And I mean, I already mentioned you could kind of start to see some of that last year. But I think pretty quickly this year, he's got everybody up to speed. And I don't think it took them long to find their footing. They obviously had that really long unbeaten stretch in the middle of the year. And I think even during the seven game stretch here recently, where they only picked up 1 win, I don't think their performances were bad, maybe not even all that different from when they were unbeaten. I really think in a lot of ways they got unlucky. I don't know how big you are into kind of like the advanced analytics and stats and all that stuff, but like American Soccer Analysis, their expected points, Nashville picked up 3 from those 7 games, which was worst in MLS. Expected points had them at the 10th best team in that stretch, and they should have picked up between 10 and 11 points instead of those 3, and those would have kept them within 3 points of the Supporter Shield, where they had started that skid. They conceded a few sloppy goals and then missed some chances that they hadn't been missing throughout the year. But it's not like I don't think anything with their approach really changed overnight. And I think I hate to reduce it to like sometimes the ball just doesn't go in, but that's really what it felt like. It felt like if they had converted the chances the way they have been all year, they would have taken a lot more from that. So all that's a long-winded way of saying 1 win from 7 doesn't look great on paper. And obviously I think it really hurt their chances at the Supporter Shield, but I also don't think it raised a ton of red flags, just worrying that something was broken with this team, because I don't think anything from the actual performances on the pitch changed too drastically.
Yeah, and it wasn't the easiest schedule. There were a few kind of relative cupcakes in there, but there were plenty of good teams. I remember Cincinnati being in there. I know Orlando was in there. And
they lost both of those games in second half stoppage time. Like they went into stoppage time tied and conceded late winners. A point on the road against Cincinnati and Orlando probably feels very different.
Yeah, for sure. And then Surridge and Mukhtar, obviously, this very dynamic duo this year. You could argue probably pretty credibly that Sun and Bawanga is the best duo in MLS. I know SoccerWise had something on this a little bit ago, but they clearly haven't been doing it all season. Surridge and Mukhtar have. So just curious about that partnership and how that's evolved and how they complement each other. And you talked about them in a 4-2-2-2. Are they the two that you would consider like at the very end of that? Or is Mukhtar kind of playing more withdrawn?
Yeah, so I mean, You could call it a 4-2-2-2. You could call it a 4-4-1-1. I think it shifts throughout the game. It's definitely the two of them are in kind of those two central attacking roles. They do both have freedom, though. There have been a few times where it's ended up looking more like a 4-3-3 with Mukhtar as a nominal number 9, and Surridge will even shift out to the left wing, which is not necessarily what you'd expect. I think maybe unfairly has garnered a reputation as being just a target number 9. I think a lot of people looked at him when he was signed and was like, oh, he's 6'3" in English and played in the championships, so he's probably just a target forward. And I think he's definitely much more than that. And honestly, probably even playing in the air is not one of his greatest strengths. I think he's pretty good in combination. He's excellent finishing kind of first time with a ball at his feet, kind of in or around the box. So I think he's definitely maybe more dynamic than it would look just kind of based on his profile. But yeah, the two of them definitely play more centrally. And really everything is designed around getting the ball to the two of them in the final third. I think Hany Mukhtar shades more towards the right side, and that's where most of what Nashville does comes from. It's a lot of combinations with Mukhtar and Andy Nahar from right back, who has been, I think, one of maybe the best right back in MLS. If not, it's just him and Alex Freeman. I think they've been the two best. So it's Mukhtar and Nahar and Patrick Yazbek combining, and then getting the ball across the box to Surridge to clean it up. I mean, Surridge was, I thought, pretty good last year. He scored 12 goals, and this was a team that couldn't really provide service to anybody. So I thought he did pretty well to get 12 goals from what he was working with last year. And then he's obviously just taken it to a whole new level this year. But I think some of the warning signs were there for him last year. And then Mukhtar, everybody, I think, was a little bit worried that he was maybe declining after 2024, even the second half of 2023. But again, like I said with Callahan, it looked like you could start seeing things pick up for him after Callahan took over last year. He hit some form down the stretch, and then he's just been excellent this year. He's already done 16 goals in MLS with 2 games left, and that's tied for his second highest scoring season ever after the 2022 season where he won the Golden Boot and MVP. So it's kind of remarkable what he's been able to do this year. And I think if it weren't for how good Sam Surridge has been, I think people would be talking a lot more about how good Hany Mukhtar is, because he looks very much like the kind of best 11 MVP type player that he was a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly aware of Mukhtar's MVP campaign here in Austin. So since he was head to head with Driussi, who was our MVP candidate. But yeah, I was a little bit curious about that. Just wanted to develop that a little bit more. This is his best statistical season in 3 years. There was that drop off that he was having in 23, 24. 23 was puzzling. He had no assists at all that season in regular season play. And then just, curious as to what that dip might have been attributable to. And then why this resurgence, why this is it a fountain youth type thing, or is there something else going on with the system that's helping him?
Yeah, so a few things. First, with the drop off, I think the public reason was he was really good the first half of 2023, and it honestly felt like he was set for another MVP type season through the first half. Then there was the kind of transfer offer that came through from I don't have a specific team, but there was a pretty sizable offer from the Qatari league that Nashville rejected. And that was around when talks of a new contract started popping up. He was not super highly paid, just given the grand scheme of things. He was not even in the top 10, highest paid players in MLS, and that's after he had just won the MVP. So that all happened in the summer of 2023. That's when his performance dipped off. Along with that, and he didn't talk about it at the time, and it only came out recently that he started talking about it publicly, but his father passed away that summer. And so I think that had a pretty significant impact on him. Just they were pretty close. And so I think in retrospect, it maybe makes sense why some of his performances dipped. Got a new contract before the 2024 season, and then the team started playing poorly. Gary Smith was fired. They had an interim coach for a month and a half. It was the worst Nashville has ever been. So I think his performances went along with just the rest of the team. Yeah. Once BJ Callahan came in and they had more structure, he looked kind of like the old Hany Mukhtar last year, and it was just too late to salvage some of the stats after kind of a poor performance for the first half of the year. But I don't think really anything has changed other than it's a more functional team, and Hany Mukhtar is still a good player. He's only 30 years old. It's not like he's old. I don't think he turned into a bad player overnight. I think this is kind of just him getting back to his normal level.
Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like just some weirdness happened in there and he's weathered that.
I think that's the short version of it.
Yeah, and that can happen to players sometimes. It's good most games to see him doing well. He was at All-Star. He's been wonderful at All-Star. And yeah, really, really like him as a player, but not particularly relishing facing him necessarily. But it'll be fun to see. It'll be fun to see that matchup. We were talking the last podcast that we did about how we think he's going to be a central figure somehow. Either he's going to do something spectacular or he's going to get thwarted. But I feel like he's going to be central to what Nashville does.
This year, I think, is different because in the past, when Hany Mukhtar plays well, Nashville typically do well. In the past, when Hany's played poorly, Nashville have played poorly. And I think now they have enough of a structure around him and just other guys like Surridge who can step up, even guys like Gaston Brugman who can do some of the creative work. So now, if Mukhtar has an off night, the rest of the team isn't doomed as much as they were in the past. Obviously, they want him to play well, and they do well when he plays well, but it's also not as reliant on him as it has been in the past.
Good deal. Yeah, so I guess that kind of gets me into my next question. I wanted to ask a little bit about unsung heroes on the team, players that we might not be as familiar with, but that you expect to have a significant role in things on Wednesday night.
Yeah, for sure. So I think there are maybe three. One is probably not very under the radar, but Andy Nahar. I mentioned him already.
Yep.
He is, aside from, I think he has an argument to be the most important player on Nashville right now, just because of how much work he does in build up. He has 10 assists in MLS play, but he does a ton more in build up to set the goals up. He plays the pass before the pass before the pass in a lot of ways. But I think he's been absolutely crucial to everything they've done. Patrick Yazbek is another one. He came in last summer. Obviously had some controversy in his first MLS game against Austin.
Yep, remember that.
2 or 3 match ban for, I think the official line was discriminatory language. He's been super important to Nashville this year. And depending on who he's paired with, he kind of changes how he plays. If he's paired with Eddie Tagseth, he's more of kind of the creative of the midfield duo. If he's paired with Brugman, he kind of sits back and does a lot more of the dirty work. But he's been fantastic this year and honestly kind of developed into a leadership role for Nashville at just 23 years old. So he feels like they're like the next generation of midfielder for Nashville after Dax McCarty and Anibal Godoy have left. So he's super important. And then the last one, Jason Palacios, who was signed. He's a 31-year-old center back signed from the Colombian League this winter. I had never heard of him when they announced the signing. And he has been fantastic. Walker Zimmerman has missed a decent amount of games with international duty or with injury. And in the past, like I said with Mukhtar, like if he didn't play well, a death sentence for Nashville. If Zimmerman wasn't on the field, a death sentence for Nashville. And Palacios has been good enough that not only have Nashville not missed a beat when Zimmerman hasn't played, but like I think there's an argument that he's been better than Zimmerman on the pitch and made it so that I'm not sure Zimmerman's coming back from an injury. And I'm not sure that he just walks back into the starting lineup. I think Mayer and Palacios have been really, really good together. But yeah, just the way Palacios plays, he's dominant in the air. He's fantastic at kind of winning tackles in the open field. And he maintains possession really well. Like he'll win challenges in the open field. And instead of just kind of clearing it or playing it back to a goalkeeper, he'll turn and drive the ball upfield. And just his presence, but his ability to kickstart attacks, I think has been crucial for Nashville this year. So I'm fully expecting to see him start tomorrow.
Okay. Sounds fun. Sounds like that's going to be fun for Austin's front line. So any burning questions that you have for me that I can answer on Austin's behalf?
I think for me, I'm interested how they approach games at home. Obviously, they have the best home defense in MLS. I think it's 11 goals conceded from 15 games, if I'm not mistaken. Like, how do they approach games at home? Do they try to play on the front foot, or is it more just absorb pressure?
I mean, it's really more situational. They've shown some adaptability lately. They've adopted this kind of 3-4-3 or 5-3-2, depending on how you want to envision it, kind of formation, which they haven't really been able to do because for a large stretch of the season, they've only had 3 center backs on the roster. And then recently over the summer, they brought in Teja Djordjevic, who is a U22 center back who has plugged into the lineup pretty much almost immediately, which was a little bit surprising because that's not really Nico's way and that hasn't really been the club's way. Typically, they'll bring players on a little bit more slowly, but parts of the season you had a 4-4-2 and then you also have Nico Estevez saying formations aren't real. So they can be very flexible and they can be very adaptable depending on who their opponent is and can sometimes match. I think you saw in Minnesota in the semifinal in particular, they did a really good job of kind of matching personnel and definitely wanted that game, I think, a little bit more. At home, though, it starts with the fans. It's an incredible home atmosphere. The South End is super loud. It's this Murga tradition, and it's been built up over 5 years, and they go the full 90. So that brings a lot of energy. And then I think just knowing the field, it's a fairly new stadium. It's pretty state of the art. I think they feel comfortable in there, depending. I mean, I don't think there's any kind of like magic that they instill from that stadium necessarily, but Brad Stuver obviously very, very comfortable there, very supported. And I think a lot of it starts with him. Yeah, they've shown capacity to win on the road at points this year, but yeah, I think just the energy that they get is something that is helpful to how they approach those home matches. One thing that I was curious about with y'all as well is in 615, you were talking about Nashville doesn't necessarily like to play with the ball as much. And Austin can be pretty fluid with that. They don't seem to, for large stretches of the season, really like to play with the ball as much either. They've been much more transition reliant than they have in the past, and they've really been able to cultivate that a little bit more.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that Nashville don't like to play with the ball. I think it's very situational, though.
Okay.
Like, depending on who they play. There have been games where they've had 65+% possession and broken teams down that way. And especially if Brugman is on the field, I think they're very comfortable doing that. And definitely significantly better at playing with the ball this year than anything we've seen before under Gary Smith. I think that was probably one of the biggest weaknesses that they had. If they were ever asked to play with the ball, they just didn't have ideas. So I think it's significantly improved. But I think Callahan also isn't above being pragmatic. And so there have been other games where they're fine to absorb pressure and hit on the counter. In the first game against Philadelphia this year, they definitely sat deeper and just played over the top and beat them that way. So I think they're able to approach games in a couple of different ways. So I'm interested to see how they approach it. And I think who starts the game for them, I think will probably indicate if Yazbek and Tagzeth start the game together. I think that'll probably indicate that they're trying to absorb pressure more, just mix it up and cause a little bit more chaos and score from winning possession back high up the field. I think if Brugman starts, I think they'll try to be a little bit more composed and look to be more methodical in possession.
Okay. Yeah, and then I would say for Austin's part, I mean, their midfield is really coming along this year. Owen Wolf has made the leap, much more confident. He's not a heliocentric 10. This team has never really had one, but definitely is more comfortable whether he's playing left wing or whether he's playing one of the more attacking midfield spots, has been able to engineer a lot of chances. He's tied with Osman Bukhari, the right winger, for assists. Bukhari is another playmaker, and I think another player who, as I mentioned in my preview for y'all, is pretty key. He can create key passes, but he can also take on defenders one-on-one or sometimes one-on-three if he's feeling especially saucy. Yeah. And then Danny Pereira, obviously he's been in the league, #1 super draft pick. It's been 5 years now, but he's really cultivating his game more, and he's made some improvements this year. There were questions about his development under Josh Wolf, and I think that having come out from under the bad vibes of 24, he seems to be one of the players that's been more responsive to the coaching change. In terms of thinking about our unsung heroes, I want to actually point you as well to Brendan Hines-Ike, who's a veteran center back. He was with DC United. Ilie, when he is in there, he does a really good job organizing the defense and keeping things structured, especially at home, where they're kind of more used to the home crowd and the noise and the energy. But Hines-Ike, when Ilie is not in there, is one who has taken that role. Because if it's not Ilie, it's Nicholas Dupersarski, who is a 20-year-old Argentine defensive mid who is developing, but he's 20 and he's fairly new to the league still, a little bit green.
I'm curious what the vibe is like just with a fan base. I know, obviously, I think for MLS, Austin clearly has like fantastic support. What's it been like for the Open Cup? I feel like it's always a little bit hit or miss, just especially how MLS has maybe underplayed the Open Cup recently.
Yeah.
Are fans like citywide? Is there kind of a buzz for tomorrow?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, through the tournament and the home games, I mean, it's probably been about like 3/4 full, which doesn't sound great, but by Open Cup standards, that's pretty fantastic.
Similar to Nashville.
Yeah. Clearly the game against El Paso where the team got booed off the field at halftime and it was still 2-0 in the 73rd minute, actually, everybody was really, really worried. And it would have been a really kind of horrible chapter in Austin's existence. You've seen what they've done in some tournaments, right? Violette in the Champions League is still a source of a subject. But they weathered that. They scored the goals, and it's been really good vibes around the Open Cup since. And the San Jose match was crazy. I mean, again, this season they have a clunker like every few games. They were winless in May in league play, and a lot of that was just they were playing pretty keenly difficult competition. I did a breakdown where basically the first half of the season was one of the toughest in the league if you're going by points per game, and then the second half has been one of the easiest and kind of historically easy compared to what other teams face in terms of opponents with points per game. They haven't weathered all of that necessarily as well as they should, but they're 7-4-3 since June. So that gives you an indication that things have been a little bit better for them. And the vibes have gotten a little bit better, although it's a little bit more of a roller coaster in the league matches, but feels like they'll fairly comfortably get into the playoffs. And then from there, it's hard to know what they'll do. I don't know that they talent-wise match up with the best teams in the West, but certainly they're a spunky group that can possibly engineer some upsets.
Yeah, I'm really excited to check out the stadium tomorrow. From TV, it looks fantastic. So I'm expecting a lot of just from the stadium, but also I think it should be a fun atmosphere.
Yeah,
Nashville bring a pretty decent amount of fans. Like I feel like half
good.
the people on my plane this morning were
Nice.
coming for the game. So that was fun to see.
Okay, awesome. And then does Tempo make road trips?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if he's coming. The last road trip I saw him, every year Nashville play a friendly against Huntsville, their MLS Next Pro team. So I saw him out there a few weeks ago, but that's also a 2-hour drive as opposed to Nashville to Texas. So we'll see. I'm not sure on that.
Okay. Yeah, we've got Verdissimo, who is a lucha libre wrestler. So who's actually like a real life human being. He just wears a mask. He doesn't
That's
have
awesome.
Yeah, an elaborate furry costume or anything like that. But he's come into his own. So he was the central figure in maybe one of the worst schedule release videos I think that's happened in MLS history. Yeah, look up the Verde Scrolls. It's okay. Just absolutely surreal. I mean, there was definite vision for what was being done. They definitely took a big swing on that one. And it's mixed. There's some people that absolutely love it who think it's the best thing ever. But yeah, so he kind of made his debut in there and he's evolved into something that is, I would say, a good mascot, not a conventional mascot. I mean, you still can't beat Fang, right? So
yeah,
as mascots go, but he's doing the work. So predictions. Let's go into what you think might transpire tomorrow night.
Oh boy, so I'm still working on our preview tomorrow, so I haven't even fully thought through my prediction. I'm probably some proximity bias here, but I'm going to go 2-1 Nashville.
Okay.
Obviously, I think playing on the road gives Austin the edge. I think BJ in his press conference this morning said you have to just throw form and stuff out the window in these kind of knockout games, especially when you get to a final. But I don't know. I think just on the whole, I feel like the Eastern Conference is just stronger than the Western Conference, especially this year. And so that gives me a little bit of pause, but I think it's going to be really tight. And Austin's win in Minnesota, who I thought they were my favorite to win the whole thing, I think that's changed my evaluation of them a little bit going into this.
Yeah. And 2 words, Brad Stuver.
Right. Congrats to a new contract for him, though. That's fun to see. I've gotten to talk to him a few times just with stuff for MLSsoccer.com, and he's always super fun to talk to and seems like just a great guy off the field too.
He is, yeah. He's doing excellent community work and he's always super thoughtful and insightful in media stuff, and he usually hangs around towards the end. So when we get out of the press conference, like, we know that there are most weeks good quotes waiting for us at the end of that. So
that makes our job so much easier, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah. We got some good ones. Y'all do too. Yeah, I say 2-1 the other way. I think Surridge is going to beat Stuver once, but I feel like there's an incredible night for him. And now that Austin is engineering multiple goals in a number of games, I think they're set to do it again here. But I think it's going to be fun and lively and energetic and a lot of up and down. I'm really hoping for that sort of thing. We've seen at times more sedate affairs, but we haven't really seen them in Open Cup. So I'm looking forward.
I think it should be pretty tight either way.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to 90 minutes of excellent soccer. I hate extra time, so I don't want to say I'm even expecting 120 minutes of excellent soccer because they get kind of leggy around the 115th minute. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It should be exciting. It should be electric. And yeah, I'll see you in the press box.
Yeah, I can't wait. It should be fun.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate having you on, and enjoy your time in Austin. And yeah, should be an Epic Cup final.
This is the best thing I've heard in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.